The morning sun reflected against the tall glass towers of Manhattan as people in sharp suits hurried past one of the city's most prestigious banks. Inside, the atmosphere was polished, gleaming, and filled with the quiet confidence of wealth. Every detail spoke of luxury, from the marble floors to the soft leather chairs in the waiting area. It was a place where appearances seemed to matter more than humanity itself. Through the revolving glass doors, a middle-aged black woman walked in quietly. She wore a plain gray sweater, faded jeans, and sneakers that had seen better days. In her hand was a simple tote bag, and on her head rested a cap pulled low. Compared to the gold watches, silk ties, and designer handbags around her, she stood out like a misplaced shadow in a bright room. Almost instantly, eyes turned toward her. A few customers gave quick glances of suspicion. Some let their gazes linger with judgment. At the reception desk, two young tellers exchanged whispers, their smirks betraying the cruel amusement they felt. One of them, Jessica, muttered under her breath, "She must be lost, or worse." The woman, however, kept her composure. She walked with quiet dignity toward the number dispenser, pulled a ticket, and sat in the corner seat. Her movements were slow, steady, and calm, yet the tension in the room thickened. From across the room, the security guard narrowed his eyes. A tall man with a stern jaw, he crossed his arms and shifted his weight, watching her like a hawk. To him, her clothes, her skin, and her silence spelled trouble. Not far away, a middle-aged woman clutching a Louis Vuitton handbag pulled it closer when the black woman passed. She leaned toward her companion and whispered loudly enough to be heard, "What is someone like her doing here? Probably up to no good." The words stung like a knife. The woman heard them clearly, but she did not respond. Instead, she lowered her gaze to the ticket in her hand and breathed slowly. She had heard those kinds of words before, too many times in her life. Her name was Mary Collins, and though no one here knew it, her presence in that bank would soon change everything. Minutes passed, filled with disapproving stares and muffled laughter. Finally, Mary's number was called. She stood, walked steadily to the counter, and greeted the teller with a polite smile. "I'd like to make a withdrawal," she said softly. The teller, Jessica, looked her up and down before replying. "And how much would that be?" Her voice dripped with sarcasm. Mary calmly slid a slip of paper forward. Jessica read the figure and nearly laughed aloud. Her eyebrows shot up and she exchanged another mocking glance with her colleague. "You want this much money?" Jessica's tone turned sharp, loud enough that nearby customers began to listen. "Do you even have an account here?" "Yes," Mary answered, her voice calm but firm. "I've had one for many years." Jessica scoffed and shook her head. "I'll need to speak with the manager. Wait right here." She said the last words as if speaking to a child. Within moments, the branch manager arrived, a man in his 40s with slicked back hair and a smug confidence in his step. He took one look at Mary and frowned. "What seems to be the problem here?" he asked. Jessica leaned closer and whispered, though not quietly enough. "She's trying to take out a huge amount. Doesn't look like she belongs here." The manager nodded slowly, his eyes narrowing as he studied Mary. His lips curled into a cold smile. "Ma'am, I'll need to see identification. And if you're attempting fraud, you should know this bank has zero tolerance." Murmurs rippled through the lobby. Customers turned in their seats to watch. The security guard began walking closer, his heavy footsteps hoeing. Mary stood silently, her hand resting on her tote bag. Her heart tightened, but her dignity held firm. She had been patient long enough, but something inside her warned that the storm was just beginning. The manager's voice grew louder. "If you can't prove you belong here, I'll have security escort you out immediately." The guard loomed beside her, ready to act. All around, judgmental eyes waited to see her shamed. Mary looked around at each face, her silence more powerful than words. In that moment she knew, this was not just about her withdrawal, it was about something far greater. And soon the entire bank would realize who she truly was. The room grew tense as the manager crossed his arms, standing tall in front of Mary. His voice carried a sharp authority, as though he were certain he was dealing with a criminal. "Show me your ID and proof of account," he demanded. His tone wasn't professional, it was accusatory, filled with suspicion that made nearby customers lean closer, eager for drama. Mary reached calmly into her tote bag, pulling out her wallet. She handed over her ID and bank card without hesitation. Her hands were steady, her expression composed. But instead of carefully examining the documents, the manager gave them a cursory glance and smirked. These could easily be fake. People like you come in here all the time trying to scam honest institutions. Did you think you could fool us? The words cut deep. People like you. It was more than doubt about her paperwork. It was an insult directed at her very existence. Jessica, the teller, giggled quietly, whispering to her colleague, "Can you believe she even tried?" Their laughter echoed, sharp and humiliating. Mary straightened her back. "I am a customer here. My account has more than enough to cover the withdrawal." Her voice was calm, though beneath it lay years of buried pain, times she had been overlooked, underestimated, judged. The manager shook his head. "Ma'am, this is not a welfare office. This is one of the most prestigious banks in Manhattan. Large withdrawals require verification, and frankly," he looked her up and down, "you don't fit the profile of someone with that kind of balance." Gasps rippled through the waiting area. A wealthy-looking couple whispered to each other, smirking as they glanced at Mary. Another customer chuckled, pulling out his phone to record the scene, as if her humiliation was entertainment. The security guard, still looming nearby, tightened his grip on his belt. His eyes warned, "One wrong move and you're out." Mary closed her eyes briefly, drawing in a slow breath. Her heart was heavy, but she would not allow anger to take over. She remembered her father's words from long ago. "Dignity is power. Never let them strip it from you." She opened her eyes, fixing the manager with a steady gaze. "Are you refusing to process my withdrawal?" The manager's lip curled. "I'm refusing until proper authorities can verify who you really are." He glanced at the guard. "Go ahead and call the police. Let's settle this once and for all." A wave of murmurs swept through the lobby. The words "call the police" sent a chill through the air. Several customers shook their heads in disapproval, not at the manager, but at Mary, as if she had brought shame upon herself. The elderly black man Mary had noticed earlier, the one struggling to get help with his savings, watched the scene with sorrow in his eyes. He had seen this story too many times in his life. The janitor woman, still in her work uniform, paused her sweeping and looked at Mary with quiet empathy. They both knew the sting of being invisible, the wound of being judged. Mary's patience was thinning, but her composure remained. "I have given you my ID and my account information. I have complied with your requests. What you are doing now is not procedure, it is discrimination." Her words landed like a stone dropped into a pond, sending ripples of discomfort across the room. Some customers shifted uneasily in their seats, unwilling to admit what they were witnessing. The manager's face hardened. "Discrimination?" he scoffed. "Don't play that card here. You look suspicious and your behavior confirms it. Until the police arrive, you will wait right here. If you try to leave, my guard will stop you." The security guard stepped closer, his shadow falling over Mary's chair. His presence was menacing, as though she were already guilty of a crime. Jessica smirked, folding her arms with satisfaction. To her, this was nothing more than a spectacle, a chance to prove that people like Mary did not belong in this world of glass towers and wealth. Mary lowered her eyes to the floor. For a brief moment, memories of her youth came flooding back. The times she was told she wasn't good enough, the times her intelligence was doubted, the times her worth was denied. Each scar was invisible, but deeply felt. Yet beneath the pain was a quiet strength. She had not come this far in life to bow to cruelty. When she lifted her head again, her eyes were clear and unshaken. "Very well," she said softly. "We will wait for the truth to come out." The manager turned away, certain of his victory. Jessica whispered triumphantly, "She'll regret ever walking in here." But Mary knew something no one else in that room did. The truth was already on its way. Because in just a few minutes, the regional director of the bank was scheduled to arrive for an unannounced inspection, and when he stepped into that lobby, everything would change. The bank lobby had grown unusually quiet, yet beneath the silence pulsed a cruel anticipation. Everyone seemed to be waiting to see this woman humiliated further, waiting for the security guard to drag her out, waiting for the police to arrive. Mary sat calmly, her back straight, her hands folded neatly on her lap. Outwardly, she appeared serene. Inwardly, her heart weighed heavy, but her will remained unbroken. The Major, now emboldened by the stares of approving customers, leaned against the counter and raised his voice as though putting on a performance. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced mockingly, "this woman here claims she has the right to withdraw a very large sum of money. Yet as you can see, she has failed to provide convincing proof. We take fraud seriously at this institution." The audience chuckled, some shaking their heads, others rolling their eyes. Jessica smirked proudly behind the counter, whispering to her colleague, "She'll be escorted out soon enough. Can't believe she thought she could get away with it." Mary said nothing. She had endured ridicule before, but as she looked around the room, her heart clenched at the sight of others who silently carried the same wounds. The elderly black man who had been mistreated earlier lowered his eyes, his shoulders sagging in resignation. He knew this humiliation all too well. The janitor woman, still holding her broom, shook her head sadly, whispering to herself, "Some things never change." The security guard stepped forward, towering over Mary. His voice was stern and intimidating. "Ma'am, stand up. You'll wait near the entrance until the authorities arrive." Mary glanced up at him, her calm gaze unwavering. "I have done nothing wrong. I will not leave this seat until my transaction is processed." Her firmness unsettled the guard. For a brief second, hesitation flickered across his face, but the manager barked, "Do as I said. Remove her if you must." The guard tightened his jaw and moved closer, but before he could reach for her arm, Mary spoke again, her voice steady, but carrying a quiet strength that pierced the tension. "Every person in this room will remember what happens today, not because of the money, not because of me, but because of how quick you were to judge someone you know nothing about." Her words fell into the silence like thunder. The customers who had been laughing moments ago shifted uncomfortably. A few even looked away, guilt creeping into their expressions. Still, the manager refused to back down. He scoffed, raising his chin proudly. "Save your speeches. This is a bank, not a stage, and you, ma'am, are wasting everyone's time. The sooner the police arrive, the sooner we can get back to serving our real customers." The words, "real customers," echoed painfully, as though branding her an outsider, unworthy of dignity. Mary clasped her hands tighter, her mind flashing back to her youth, being turned away from opportunities, doubted by teachers, underestimated at every turn. She had built her life fighting against those assumptions. She had earned her success brick by brick, scar by scar, and now here she was, facing the same poison again in the very institution she led. But she would not yield, not this time. Jessica, growing bolder, leaned forward on the counter and sneered. "Honestly, why don't you just admit you don't belong here? You'd save yourself and everyone else the embarrassment." Mary's eyes lifted, locking onto Jessica's. Her gaze was neither angry nor defeated. It was sharp, steady, and resolute. "One day," she said softly, "you'll learn that respect cannot be measured by appearance. And on that day, you'll remember me." The teller faltered, her smirk flickering uncertainly. The lobby's heavy silence was suddenly broken by the sound of polished shoes clicking against the marble floor. The front doors swung open and a man in a tailored suit entered, exuding authority. He carried himself with the calm confidence of someone important, and instantly, staff straightened, adjusting their postures. It was the regional director. His arrival was unannounced, but his presence commanded the room. The manager's smug smile wavered for the first time. "Director, what a surprise. Welcome, sir," he exclaimed, rushing forward with forced enthusiasm. The director glanced around, his sharp eyes quickly noticing the tension. In the lobby, customers were staring, whispering. The security guard stood rigid near Mary, while the teller looked pale and flustered. "What's going on here?" the director asked, his voice calm but edged with authority. The manager stammered, scrambling for words. "Nothing serious, sir. Just a suspected fraud case. We're handling it. Customer trying to withdraw money she doesn't have." He motioned dismissively toward Mary. The director's gaze followed, landing on the woman seated calmly, her hands still folded. and in that instant his eyes widened with recognition. Mary lifted her head, meeting his gaze. For the first time her lips curved into the faintest hint of a knowing smile. The silence in the room grew unbearable. Everyone could feel that something was about to shift, though none of them could yet imagine just how much. The regional director's eyes lingered on Mary for a long moment, his usually composed expression breaking into shock. He took a slow step forward, ignoring the eager words of the manager at his side. "Mrs. Collins?" the director finally asked, his voice carrying both respect and disbelief. The entire lobby froze. Every whisper died instantly. The customers who had moments ago smirked and mocked now stared in confusion. Jessica's mouth fell open. The manager's confident smile collapsed into a look of stunned horror. Mary rose gracefully from her chair. Her movements were calm, deliberate, almost regal in their quiet authority. For the first time that morning, her true presence radiated through the room. She looked directly at the director and nodded. "Yes, it's me." The director's eyes widened further, then he hurried toward her, extending both hands. I didn't expect to see you here today. If we'd known you were visiting, we would have prepared properly. Please forgive us for this disgraceful scene." Gasps rippled through her. "Oh, the bank!" Customers exchanged bewildered looks. Jessica staggered back from the counter, her face pale. The security guard shifted uneasily, realizing he had been moments away from manhandling the very woman who outranked every person in that building. The manager's throat tightened as panic set in. "Wait, what do you mean?" he stammered, his voice cracking. He turned to Mary, his face drained of color. You're Mrs. Collins?" Mary's eyes locked on his. There was no anger in her gaze, no raised voice, no theatrics, only calm truth. "Yes, I am Mary Collins, Chief Executive Officer of this bank." Her words struck the room like lightning. Customers gasped, hands flying to mouths. Some whispered in disbelief, "She's the CEO?" Others looked down in shame, remembering how they had judged her only moments ago. Jessica's knees nearly buckled. Her arrogance evaporated in an instant. She whispered under her breath, No, that's not possible." But it was undeniable. The director himself bowed his head respectfully, confirming every word. "Yes, Mrs. Collins is not just our CEO. She is the very reason this institution is thriving today." The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. The once smug manager now trembled, sweat forming at his brow. He had publicly mocked, doubted, and threatened the very leader of the empire he served. "Mrs. Collins," the director said gently, "please allow me to personally handle whatever transaction you came here for. It would be an honor." Mary looked around the room slowly, her gaze sweeping across every face. The wealthy customers who had sneered now lowered their eyes. The woman with the Louis Vuitton handbag clutched it tighter, guilt written across her face. The elderly man and the janitor woman, however, allowed small, hopeful smiles to appear. They had seen justice with their own eyes. Mary turned back to the manager. Her voice was steady, but beneath it carried the weight of every insult she had endured that morning. "Tell me," she said softly, "do I still look like someone? Who doesn't belong here?" The manager stammered, his lips trembling. I didn't know, Mrs. Collins. If I had known..." Mary raised a hand, silencing him. "That is exactly the problem. You based my worth not on who I am, but on what you assumed. My clothes, my skin, my quietness. You saw none of the truth because you never cared to look beyond the surface." The manager's knees weakened. His voice broke into a desperate plea. "Please, I meant no harm. It was just procedure. Surely we can forget this misunderstanding." But the director's face hardened. He stepped forward, his tone cold and official. "This was no misunderstanding. I witnessed the way you treated her. I heard the words you used, the humiliation you caused not only her, but also other customers. This behavior has no place in our institution." The manager opened his mouth, but no words came. The weight of his own actions crashed down upon him like a tidal wave. Jessica tried to speak up, her voice trembling. "I was only following his lead." Mary's gaze snapped to her, sharp and unyielding. "No, You laughed, you whispered, you mocked, you chose cruelty when kindness cost you nothing. The teller fell silent, her face burning red with shame. The customers remained utterly still, as though the marble floors had frozen them in place. The entire atmosphere of the bank had shifted. The woman who had been scorned just minutes ago now stood revealed as the most powerful figure in the building. And justice had only just begun. The lobby was silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. Every eye in the room was fixed on Mary Collins, the woman who only moments ago had been scorned and ridiculed, now revealed as the CEO of the very institution they stood in. The regional director remained by her side, his posture respectful, his expression stern. The manager, pale and trembling, tried to form an excuse, but his words faltered. "Mrs. Collins, Please, I only meant to protect the bank's integrity," he stammered. "You must understand, the withdrawal request seemed unusual." Anyone would have questioned it. Mary's gaze cut through him, calm yet unyielding. "Questioning is part of your duty. Humiliation is not. Mockery is not. Nor is assuming someone's worth by their clothes or the color of their skin." The customers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Several lowered their eyes, ashamed of having laughed or judged along with the staff. Jessica, standing frozen behind the counter, finally found her voice. "Mrs. Collins, I didn't mean to be disrespectful. I was only following protocol." Mary turned to her slowly. Her eyes were sharp, but her voice carried a deeper weight, measured, deliberate, and piercing. "Protocol does not demand laughter. Protocol does not encourage cruelty. You chose to ridicule me. You chose to treat me as though I did not belong." Jessica's lips trembled. She had no defense. The regional director cleared his throat, his tone firm. "This incident is unacceptable. Mrs. Collins, with your permission, I will begin disciplinary procedures immediately. The reputation of this bank depends on fairness and respect. What I witnessed here today was neither." Mary nodded slightly but raised a hand. "Before we make decisions, let's make one thing clear. For everyone in this room." She stepped forward, her voice carrying across the marble lobby. "I came here today quietly, dressed simply, because I wanted to see this branch with my own eyes. I wanted to know how ordinary people, those without suits or luxury handbags, are treated when they walk through these doors. And what I witnessed confirmed something painful. Too many of our employees, and even some of our customers, judge worth by appearance instead of character." Her words echoed in the stillness. The elderly black man lifted his head, his eyes glistening with tears. The janitor paused her sweeping, nodding quietly. Mary continued, her tone deepening. "Every single person deserves respect. Whether they withdraw $10 or 10 million, whether they wear a designer suit or a janitor's uniform, respect is not optional. It is the foundation of trust. Without it, this bank means nothing." A heavy silence followed, thick with shame. The manager bowed his head, desperate. "Mrs. Collins, please, I beg you for another chance. I have a family. This job is my life." Mary studied him for a long moment. She was not cruel, nor vengeful, but she was just. "Your position gave you power. Instead of using it to protect customers, you used it to belittle them. That choice has consequences." The director stepped forward decisively. "Effective immediately, you are suspended pending termination. Security will escort you out." The manager's knees buckled. He looked at Mary with pleading eyes, but her calm expression made it clear. This was justice, not vengeance. With trembling steps, he was led away, his once confident posture now broken. Jessica tried to slip quietly out of sight, but Mary's voice stopped her. "Jessica Carter." The teller froze, turning slowly to face her. "You will undergo retraining," Mary said firmly. "But hear me clearly. This is your one chance. If I ever hear of you or anyone in this branch mocking a customer again, there will be no second warning." Jessica nodded quickly, tears welling in her eyes. "Yes, Mrs. Collins, I understand." Mary turned then to the entire room, her gaze sweeping across staff and customers alike. "Let this day be remembered, not because of me, but because of what it teaches us. You never know who someone truly is. The person you dismiss could be the one who holds the greatest power. The person you mock could be the one who writes your paycheck. The person you disrespect could be the very leader of the institution you serve. The words struck deep, resonating in the hearts of everyone, listening. Some shifted in their seats uncomfortably, others nodded slowly in agreement. The elderly man smiled faintly, whispering, "Finally, someone said it." The regional director remained by her side, his posture respectful, his expression stern. The manager, pale and trembling, tried to form an excuse, but his words faltered. "Mrs. Collins, Please, I only meant to protect the bank's integrity," he stammered. "You must understand." The withdrawal request seemed unusual. Anyone would have questioned it. Mary's gaze cut through him, calm yet unyielding. "Questioning is part of your duty. Humiliation is not, mockery is not, nor is assuming someone's worth by their clothes or the color of their skin." The customers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Several lowered their eyes, ashamed of having laughed or judged along with the staff. Jessica, standing frozen behind the counter, finally found her voice. "Mrs. Collins, I didn't mean to be disrespectful. I was only following protocol." Mary turned to her slowly. Her eyes were sharp, but her voice carried a deeper weight, measured, deliberate, and piercing. "Protocol does not demand laughter. Protocol does not encourage cruelty. You chose to ridicule me. You chose to treat me as though I did not belong." Jessica's lips trembled. She had no defense. The regional director cleared his throat, his tone firm. "This incident is unacceptable. Mrs. Collins, with your permission, I will begin disciplinary procedures immediately. The reputation of this bank depends on fairness and respect. What I witnessed here today was neither." Mary nodded slightly but raised a hand. "Before we make decisions, let's make one thing clear. For everyone in this room." She stepped forward, her voice carrying across the marble lobby. "I came here today quietly, dressed simply, because I wanted to see this branch with my own eyes. I wanted to know how ordinary people, those without suits or luxury handbags, are treated when they walk through these doors. And what I witnessed confirmed something painful. Too many of our employees and even some of our customers judge worth by appearance instead of character." Her words echoed in the stillness. The elderly black man lifted his head, his eyes glistening with tears. The janitor paused her sweeping, nodding quietly. Mary continued, her tone deepening. "Every single person deserves respect, whether they withdraw $10 or 10 million, whether they wear a designer suit or a janitor's uniform. Respect is not optional. It is the foundation of trust. Without it, this bank means nothing." A heavy silence followed, thick with shame. The manager bowed his head, desperate. "Mrs. Collins, please, I beg you for another chance. I have a family. This job is my life." Mary studied him for a long moment. She was not cruel, nor vengeful, but she was just. "Your position gave you power. Instead of using it to protect customers, you used it to belittle them. That choice has consequences." The director stepped forward decisively. "Effective immediately, you are suspended pending termination. Security will escort you out." The manager's knees buckled. He looked at Mary with pleading eyes, but her calm expression made it clear. This was justice, not vengeance. With trembling steps, he was led away, his once confident posture now broken. Jessica tried to slip quietly out of sight, but Mary's voice stopped her. "Jessica Carter." The teller froze, turning slowly to face her. "You will undergo retraining," Mary said firmly. "But hear me clearly. This is your one chance. If I ever hear of you or anyone in this branch mocking a customer again, there will be no second warning." Jessica nodded quickly, tears welling in her eyes. "Yes, Mrs. Collins, I understand." Mary turned then to the entire room, her gaze sweeping across staff and customers alike. "Let this day be remembered, not because of me, but because of what it teaches us. You never know who someone truly is. The person you dismiss could be the one who holds the greatest power. The person you mock could be the one who writes your paycheck. The person you disrespect could be the very leader of the institution you serve." The words struck deep, resonating in the hearts of everyone listening. Some shifted in their seats uncomfortably, others nodded slowly in agreement. The elderly man smiled faintly, whispering, "Finally, someone said it." The janitor wiped a tear from her cheek, grateful that her struggles had been acknowledged. Mary exhaled slowly, her dignity unshaken, her strength undeniable. Justice is not about revenge, it is about accountability. Today, accountability has been served. And with that, the balance of power in the room had shifted permanently. The weight of silence lingered in the bank even after the manager was escorted out. The air, once heavy with ridicule and judgment, now felt different, charged with reflection, shame, and awakening. Everyone present knew they had witnessed something they would never forget. Mary remained calm, her posture straight, her presence commanding respect without ever needing to raise her voice. She looked around the lobby, her eyes meeting those of the customers who had stared, whispered, and mocked. Many lowered their gazes, unable to face her. Others shifted uncomfortably, guilt pressing down on them like stone. But then her eyes found the elderly black man. His hands were trembling as he clutched his worn-out passbook, his dignity bruised from the way he had been ignored earlier. Slowly, Mary walked toward him. The man tried to stand in respect, but she placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, urging him to remain seated. "Sir," she said softly, her voice warm and steady, "I saw how you were treated today. That will never happen again. From this moment forward, you and every customer will be served with the dignity you deserve." The man's eyes welled with tears. He whispered, almost too softly to hear, "Thank you, Mrs. Collins. People like me, we have been waiting for someone to see us." Mary squeezed his hand gently before turning to the janitor woman who stood by the corner, broom in hand. Her uniform was faded, her face weary, but her eyes shone with gratitude. "You work hard to keep this place clean," Mary said, "and yet people walk past you as if you're invisible, but you are not invisible to me. You are part of this bank's heartbeat. Don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise." The janitor pressed a hand to her chest, her lips trembling with emotion. "God bless you, ma'am," she whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. The entire lobby was hushed, humbled by these moments. The wealthy customers who had looked down on Mary earlier now shifted uneasily in their seats, some too ashamed to lift their heads. Mary then turned back toward the director and the staff. Her voice rose slightly, not in anger, but in clarity, carrying across every corner of the marble hall. "Let today be a reminder," she declared. "Respect is not a luxury. It is not something given only to those who look wealthy or dress elegantly or speak with confidence. Respect is a right, owed to every human being who walks through these doors." Her eyes swept across Jessica, who now stood with her head bowed, cheeks flushed with shame. "If we cannot show kindness and fairness here, in a place that holds people's livelihoods, dreams, and futures, then we fail not only as bankers but as human beings." The director nodded firmly, his respect for her evident. "Mrs. Collins, your words will be carried out. Every employee will undergo training, and this branch will never again forget the lesson you've taught us today." Mary gave a small nod. Then, as if sealing the moment, she reached into her tote bag, pulled out the very withdrawal slip that had started this entire storm, and placed it gently on the counter. "This transaction," she said calm, "light will proceed as it should have from the beginning." Jessica, her hands shaking, processed the request without a single word of complaint. She slid the paperwork back with trembling fingers, unable to meet Mary's eyes. The weight of her earlier cruelty pressed too heavily on her shoulders. When the process was finished, Mary gathered her things and turned once more to the customers in the lobby. Many were still watching, their faces filled with awe and shame. She spoke one final time, her words carrying the weight of truth. "Remember this, you never know who someone truly is. The person you look down on might be the very one who changes your life. The one you underestimate could be the one who holds the keys to your future. So never judge by appearances. Treat every soul with respect, because respect costs nothing, but its absence can cost everything." Her voice echoed like a final bell, leaving an imprint on every heart in the room. With quiet grace, Mary Collins walked out of the bank. The doors closed behind her, but the impact of her presence lingered long after she was gone. The customers sat in silence, reflecting. The staff stood motionless, humbled and ashamed. And the story of what happened that day, the day a black woman walked into a luxury bank, was mocked and doubted, only to reveal herself as the CEO, would spread far beyond those walls, told again and again as a lesson in justice, dignity, and humility. And so, justice was served, not through anger, but through truth. The bank would never forget the day they disrespected their own CEO,